can make it in one day. I just been ready to take off, waiting my turn on the runway. Never be turning around, never be turning around, ayy. Never be slowing it down, never be slowing it down, ayy. I keep my foot on the gas, I keep my foot on the gas, ayy. I know I'm never gonna crash, I know I'm never gonna crash, ayy. Never be turning around, never be turning around, ayy. Never be slowing it down, never be slowing it down, ayy. I keep my foot on the gas, I keep my foot on the gas, ayy. I know I'm never gonna crash, I know I'm never gonna crash, ayy. I'm not doing this for the money, so don't misinterpret my last line. The weather ain't always been sunny, but I know that I'm gonna still.
So yeah, obviously the focus of this video is about what to eat to kind of be healthy, or how to have a healthy diet, whatever you want to call it, or however you want to phrase it. It's potentially not looking good to start with, just because the first two protein sources that I've kind of had, or the main protein in my first 2 meals, has obviously been like whey protein, which is a supplement. But we'll go into that later, why that is, and then yeah, we'll just go into the details when I get home. One of my housemates obviously likes their bagels. To come home and there's like 5 stacks of bagels just on top of each other on the kitchen cupboard. And this is, so the next meal is one I eat all year round, whether I'm cutting, bulking, doing whatever, and that is this here. A big bowl of Cocoa Pops, so it's basically 100 grams of Cocoa Pops in there, and then 150 millilitres of 1% fat milk. So whether or not you think that is healthy, we will discuss in a minute, but in regards to what I think, eat it all year round, and I believe that is a healthy meal to eat post-workout, but I will explain why in more detail in a moment. Right, so now you've had like a little brief look at what I do at the beginning part of my day. Obviously the first 2 to 3 meals I have may not seem particularly healthy to you, but now I'm going to explain why I eat that at the beginning of my day around my training session, and then after I'm done talking I'm going to show you some of the other meals that I have, and then hopefully it all makes sense and come together. So the title of this video is now going to be answered, which is how to eat healthy. So this is my opinion. Obviously there's people out there who would probably disagree, but you know, it's worked very well for me, it's worked very well for my clients, and a lot of other athletes, and you know, very healthy people that I know. So this is my take on what is eating healthy. So first off, it's really important to look at what actually is health, or being healthy, and that is a state of mental, physical and social well-being. So it's not just physically being fit, it's not just you know, being happy, and it's not just, you know, having that like social aspect in life. It's a mixture of all three combined. So although you may not necessarily associate all that with food, it does all come into play, and it does make a massive difference to what I would say is a healthy diet in general, as you'd be very, very surprised at how much a diet does affect all three of those things. So the best thing to do is break it down into 2 categories, and one of those is what actual foods do you eat, so what foods are healthy, what foods should you be eating in your diet, and the second one is going to be how much of those foods, so you know, the quantity of each of those foods, as it's not just about what you're eating, it's about how much you're eating as well, when it comes to, you know, being healthy, gaining weight, losing weight. Right, so obviously this is very generalised because I'm talking to a large audience, not just a very specific individual. So in general, most of the people that I know, most of the people that come to me, you know, taking it into consideration, all my clients and stuff like that, probably eat between 3 and 5 meals per day. I think that's very average, very generalised. I think most people watching this probably do eat between 3 to 5 times a day. So what I'm going to go off is that kind of amount of meals. Obviously, if you eat more than that, it'll be very easy to kind of translate what I'm saying into, you know, maybe your 6 or 7 or 8 meals. However, if you're eating less meals than that, I do really recommend that you eat at least a minimum of 3 meals a day. If you're eating less than that, it's really, you know, going to enhance the chance that you've got some sort of poor diet, or you know, a problem with eating itself. So really do look at eating between at least 3 to 5 meals per day, and that's proper meals, not snacks. So my opinion of a healthy diet, out of those 3 to 5 meals, we'll basically just go off 5 meals because I think that's really a good midpoint. So yeah, out of those 5 meals, I'd say have 3 or 2 to 3 staple meals each day. So those staple meals are ones you have on a daily basis, and they include the main like bulk of your nutrition. So that's going to be things like having veg and fruit, which obviously got all like the micronutrients in, so having, you know, big portions of those within those 2 to 3 meals, and also protein, because protein is something that most people lack in their diet, even though you see it all over social media. Obviously it's very, very common these days to know that protein does have an impact on building muscle and, you know, having a healthy diet. So, you know, protein is still something we all lack, or most people lack, purely because they don't eat enough meat to start with. Obviously meat's quite expensive, and, you know, a lot of people just have it like once or twice a day. It involves being cooked and stuff like that, so, you know, most people's protein intake is way lower than what it should be. To reiterate, those 2 to 3 main staple meals should be eaten every single day. Obviously they can vary, but they should, you know, include something like, you know, like a lean meat, so maybe like chicken, mince, pork, mince, I mean beef, by the way, if anyone who's not from the UK, fish, and then obviously micronutrients, so something from veg. So usually the way that I look at it, or the way that I kind of explain it to most people who don't have a massive understanding of nutrition, is that usually the brighter the vegetable, the better it is for you. So vegetables that are like dark green, bright orange, they tend to have more micronutrients in them. You know, they're denser and richer in micronutrients. So go for those ones, things like broccoli, green beans, spinach, anything like that. You know, there's tons to choose from, so saying that you don't like vegetables is bullshit. I tend to place those staple meals in the centre of my day, so while you're working, you know, maybe like at tea when you get home, so for dinner, but yeah, usually like lunch and dinner are good times to have those staple meals. You know, times of the day where you're always free, so maybe on your lunch break and work, and when you get home from work and have dinner with the family. Those 2 times really are probably the best for those 2 staple meals, because you know that you can eat them every single day regardless of what happens, and you're usually kind of in a position where you can either spend some time like heating them up and eating them, or cooking them. So that's what I'd say in regards to the staple meals. In regards to what else you should be eating, I think from a psychological like standpoint, it's really important to also eat foods that you really enjoy. So I'm not saying that the staple meals should be ones that you don't enjoy, but I'm saying generally they're going to be quite basic, quite dull. You know, they're not going to involve things like chocolate and high in carbs and stuff. They're going to be more like protein based, maybe a little bit of fats in there, healthy fats from things like fish or salmon, peanut butter, something like that. But yeah, they tend to be higher in protein and higher in micronutrients. I think that's the main thing I want to get across. So those 2 to 3 additional meals that you have are ones that, you know, are maybe slightly more varied. You can change them up each day to fit your macros. You know, depending on what you're doing each day, maybe it will be a cooked meal, maybe it will be something a little bit more easier to make. But the first one I have for breakfast, I usually recommend for breakfast. It's one of the points where your body is very responsive to food. Obviously, you've had the whole time that you're sleeping, so usually about 6, 7, 8 hours where you've had no food in your stomach, had nothing to digest. So in the morning when you wake up, your body's super responsive to food, and it's also the point where you start your day. So if you wake up and don't eat anything, you're really putting yourself in a shit position for the rest of the day, because you're going to be, you know, not fueling your body. Whereas if you have something nice, big, and enjoyable to start the day, you're basically starting the day on the right foot. You're psychologically going to be in a great place. You're going to be full of energy. You're going to be happy because you've started the day with something you enjoyed eating, something that put a smile on your face. So that's very important. It may sound a bit cliche, but it's something to really take into account. So for me, I have something like oats, whey protein, which is like a chocolate flavour with some peanut butter and fruit on. So, you know, a lot of you may have seen on my Instagram story, I had it all through prep, so I have it, you know, regardless of what I am eating. It's always in my diet, regardless of how many calories are on, whether I'm super lean or super chubby. It doesn't make any difference. I enjoy that meal. It's something that I enjoy all year round, so I have it every day for breakfast. The other time that I would have a meal, which varies and is usually very high in carb, would be post-workout. So I assume most people who are watching this video have some sort of relationship with training. They train at least, you know, a couple times a week. So yeah, the second time is post-workout. Your body's in an extremely catabolic state. It's very, very responsive to food, even more so than in the morning. So this is when you want to have some high carb meals and some quick digesting protein. So for this, I have something like Cocoa Pops, which you saw earlier, a mixture of complex and simple carbs, something that I enjoy a lot. And why I think it's important to enjoy a lot is due to the association theory, and again with psychology. So, you know, when you eat something nice after you've done something, or, you know, before you've done something which, you know, you enjoy or which is productive, it kind of creates a little link between them. So I try and basically put meals which I really enjoy eating, which are kind of like high in carbs as well. There's like a physical side to this as well, eating carbs pre and post workout, obviously for like the energy state or for the energy reasons. But in general, the good psychological point of this is that when you eat nice meals, so things like Cocoa Pops post workout, it then associates that with training. So naturally you're going to look forward to training, because then when you go home you have a nice meal to eat. You know that you can eat Cocoa Pops after training, so you go into that training session looking forward to coming home afterwards and you know, getting that reward of Cocoa Pops. So something that not many people look at, but it's very, very important to have a meal post-workout and pre-workout that you do enjoy. And it's also a very good time to eat carbs, so it kind of works very well, because most people you know, do love eating carbs. So for that, Cocoa Pops, bagels and jam are usually the best shout. Pre-workout, I've been a big fan of having like normal muffins, so like a blueberry muffin, potentially with some yogurt or something like that, which is always a good shout. Again, complex and simple carbs, a little bit of fat to slowly like digest the carbs throughout your training session, and then always add a little bit of protein in between there as well. Usually protein post-workout is obviously from a shake that you saw earlier, just because it's nice and simple. And then obviously pre-workout is usually from something like either meat or yogurt or egg whites, or it can be absolutely anything. It does really vary pre-workout. The third and final meal, and after this I'm going to kind of take you through the rest of my day and show you a few of the meals that I eat, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you again about the actual quantities and stuff like that. But the final meal is before I go to bed. I think it's really, really important to eat a meal before you go to bed that, you know, puts you in a good psychological state, that makes you, you know, go to bed with a, you know, being positive and happy. So as stupid as it may sound, I have always had a nice meal before I go to bed, one that I really enjoy. It's usually one that also is very optimal. So for me, it's very important to keep things optimal. Have a very slow digesting protein, something which is potentially got a little bit of fat in, and you know, a little bit of carbs. So for this, I have a low-fat Greek yogurt, have a casein whey powder, which is obviously very slow digesting. Both those two things, both very high in protein, and I mix that together to make like kind of like a chocolatey yogurt. Add some fruit to it, and either some like oats or maybe some Cocoa Pops. At the moment, I'm actually adding a biscuit or 2 biscuits to this, just because I'm post-show, you get massive cravings. And again, it's all about kind of finding that middle ground and that balance, rather than just being super strict and not enjoying the food that you're eating, kind of stressing yourself out because you want to eat something but you can't. So it's finding that middle ground where you enjoy everything you eat, and the things that you super enjoy are kind of associated with the times of the day where, you know, you should be stress-free, you should be enjoying it. So yeah, I hope that kind of helps and gives you a rough idea of like the actual foods you should be eating. So just to go over it from start to finish, around about 5 meals a day optimally. Each of those meals you want to include a lean protein source, so that could be anything from meat to egg whites to whey protein powder, to fish. You also, around your training sessions, you want to be eating high carb meals, so that could be anything from like sweet potato, white rice, that could be Cocoa Pops. You know, it's completely down to you at the end of the day. It depends how seriously you take your training. It depends, you know, how important you think the psychological side of things is. And then obviously spread throughout the day, usually breakfast and before bed, maybe in the middle of the day, have some fats included in there. So have things like some peanut butter, other nuts, other sort of fish. You can even kind of put in the more unhealthy fats if you want to add like maybe like a biscuit or 2, or maybe like a muffin. Feel free to add that in there, but at the end of the day, it's all about you know, balance when it comes to having a healthy diet. It's not about just eating super strict all the time and being fucking miserable. But anyway, I'm going to continue for the rest of my day. I'm actually going to show you now some of my staple meals, so some of the ones that are all about. Basically, yeah, you have a look at them and I'll show you guys what I eat. Okay, so to finish off this video, I'm basically just going to talk a little bit about how much you need to eat, so the quantity of food that you eat. Now that we've talked about kind of, you know, what foods to eat, now it's time to look at what amounts of them to eat. So this is going to vary depending on the person. It's very individualized. It's why you know, I do online coaching for a job, which means that I can kind of look at, you know, each person individual and kind of give them a diet tailored to them, because a lot of these plans that you get, which are just kind of diet plans which are thrown out there, they're not tailored to you, so the vast majority of them are not going to work, or not work efficiently anyway. So in general, and this is very, very generalized, so don't take it, don't go away and kind of take these calories and use them straight away. However, it's going to be roughly what you're going to need to eat. So for a normal male who's relatively active, so going to the gym a couple of times a day, 3,000 calories a day tends to be about what they require in regards to their calorie intake. So overall calorie intake is about 3,000 calories in order to maintain their weight. So if you're eating 3,000 calories, for example, and your weight is not moving, so you weigh yourself each morning when you wake up, before you go to, or after you go to the toilet, before you eat anything or drink anything, and your weight remains consistently the same over the course of a couple of weeks, then that's your maintenance intake, and quite often it is around about 3,200 calories for the normal active male. For a female, it's going to be anywhere between usually just under 2,500 calories, can be closer to 2,000. It really depends on your activity level and how big of a person you are, basically. So, if you're someone who's like 6'6", weighing like 300 pounds compared to someone who's 5'2", weighing 150 pounds, obviously your body requires a lot more calories in order to just maintain itself, just to keep itself running. So that's kind of the main thing, and then obviously it's expenditure, depending on how much caloric expenditure you're doing, so how much movement you're doing throughout the day. Are you doing an office job? Are you very sedentary? Or are you very, very active on your feet all day? That also makes a massive difference. So it's all things to take into account. You can actually get very good calculators online, which is when I very, very first started bodybuilding, that's what I used, or when I very first started looking into like the nutrition side of things when I was a lot younger. That's what I originally used to find my maintenance intake. So just go and type into Google, just put in, I don't know, like maintenance intake calculator or something, and you can usually type in your stats and get like a rough estimate. But it's usually going to pump out something about 3,200 calories for the average male adult. So how are calories worked out? So they're basically made up from your macronutrients, which are carbs, protein and fats. Each carbohydrate that you consume contains 4 calories. Each protein you consume contains 4 calories, and then each gram of fat which you consume contains 9 calories. So obviously, if you look at it like that, fats are the densest. So if you go and have a burger each day which contains a lot of fat, it's going to contain a lot of calories. That's why foods which are high in fat generally contain a lot of calories and are not very big in size, just because 1 gram of fat contains a lot more calories than like 1 gram of carb or 1 gram of protein. So generally, in regards to how much protein you should eat, I'm going to kind of put this in a separate video, but like 1.25 pounds of protein per pound of body weight is a good thing to go off. In regards to fats, anywhere between 60 to 80 grams of fats is usually like the higher end of where you want things. Obviously, when you get down to kind of the smaller people, or people that are kind of dieting down, I've dropped them down to like 30 grams before. So it does kind of vary, but roughly you want them between 50 to 80 grams of fats, depending on obviously you as a person, just to keep things like hormone production, obviously the shuttling of like nutrients to your muscles, keep all that efficiently running, and obviously keeping you happy. However, in regards to carbohydrates, I usually fill up the rest of my my calories, or my clients' calories, with carbohydrates. So once you've got your protein intake sorted, you've got your fat sorted, the rest of your calories should be made up of carbohydrates. These are your body's initial source of energy, and yeah, a lot of people think carbohydrates are bad. They are not bad. Your body uses them to expend energy, turn to glycogen, which it uses as fuel. So yeah, when it comes to actual portion sizes, for anyone that doesn't have a coach, for anyone that doesn't really have any idea of how to like weigh stuff out and all that sort of stuff, just begin with getting an app called MyFitnessPal. You can download it from any app store, and then just get a pair of kitchen scales. Start weighing out your food, typing what food you have into MyFitnessPal, and you can get a rough idea of what actually you're eating on a daily basis. To start with, I wouldn't change anything. I'll just start using this to find out what you generally eat on a day-to-day basis, and then kind of go from there. Quite often people will find it's way more than 3,000 calories.
anyway, or they'll find that, you know, one day they're having 2,000, one day they're having 4,000 calories. So, you know, you basically want to be eating the same amount of food each day just to kind of get into that routine. Obviously get into the routine of having like 3 to 5 meals as a minimum each day. And then, you know, from there, start looking at the portion sizes you're eating and the actual, you know, macro breakdown of what you're eating. But as I said, about 1.25 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So quite often for people that's between 200 and 250 grams of protein, thereabouts. Fats between around about 60-70 grams of fats is usually a good shout to start with, and then fill the rest up with carbohydrates. So, you know, you could be between anywhere between 300, 400, 500 grams of carbohydrates. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Obviously, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe and see more stuff, feel free to do so. Little arrow down there. And obviously, yeah, any comments that I get, I'll read through. So if anyone has any suggestions on videos to do next, let me know.